I think the American people are exhausted at waking up every single morning with a president. It's like watching somebody play with a bag of broken glass all day long.
Michael Bennet has flown under the radar for most of his time representing Colorado in the U.S. Senate. But earlier this year, his mild-mannered persona changed after a floor speech ripping Republicans, specifically Ted Cruz, over the government shutdown.
When the senator from Texas shut this government down in 2013, my state was flooded. It was underwater. People were killed.
That speech lit liberal Twitter on fire and introduced Bennet to the nation, but that wave of love hasn't really continued during his presidential run. He's only qualified for 2 of the debates so far and hasn't received more than 1% in polling, making it unlikely he'll hit the stage again. I caught up with the senator at the Politico offices. We talked about what he thinks his path to victory is, whether his party is shifting too far left, and whether he thinks a presidential impeachment will help or hurt Democrats in the 2020 election.
So I think it's fair to say that you've been cautious when talking about impeachment, but we've already seen some of the evidence. We've seen the whistleblower complaint that came out. We've seen the summary of the call between President Trump and President Zelensky. Are those not enough for you for calling for impeachment?
I think that we're at the very beginning of this process and we have to let it play out.
And you've talked about President Trump having already committed impeachable offenses. So why not be for impeachment if you think that he's already committed impeachable offenses?
Because I think that it's very important when you're talking about that constitutional remedy for the public to be brought along in the discussion, for public sentiment to build. And I think the last thing this democracy needs is for us to act precipitously without public sentiment building. And I expect us to learn an enormous amount, things that you can't possibly know or I can't possibly know sitting here today. If we knew it all, there would be no purpose for an investigation. We just have a vote.
So you didn't make it on the last debate stage, which which seems to make it unlikely that you'll make it to the other fall debates because they're continuously ratcheting up the requirements to get on the debate stage. So what's the end game for you?
It's communicating with voters in the early states, which is what I'm doing. I'm using the money that I might have spent laundering it on Facebook, and I'm using it instead to talk to voters in Iowa, and I hope that'll make a difference. I think it's very hard to catch on in polls unless you're known before, which I wasn't. I wasn't nationally known, or you're actually spending money on television, which I now am. So I hope to rise in the polls in Iowa.
You're running as kind of a centrist at a time when the loudest people in the party don't seem to want that.
I wouldn't describe myself as a centrist. I mean, I think that I've read a description in a newspaper where somebody called me a pragmatic idealist, and I think that's closer to the truth. I'm pragmatic in the sense that I think we should get stuff done, and I'm idealistic because I actually believe in this democracy, and I think it's worth saving, and we have to save it. So that's what I think about. And whether the party's too far left or not, I do think there are issues that some people are running on that are going to make it very hard to win in purple states, but that's what a primary campaign is about. Medicare for all, I think, is the best example.
So walk me through kind of your path to victory here. So you leave the political offices.
Yeah.
You get back on the campaign trail.
I'm going to have a cup of tea out there. No, I think that I've got to do better than expected in Iowa and New Hampshire. I've got to do well, I'll say that, in Iowa and New Hampshire. I think to continue, and that's what I hope to be able to do. People in those states haven't remotely made up their minds about who they think is best situated to beat Donald Trump, and so there's time.
If you don't do well in Iowa, New Hampshire,
well, I'm going to hope to do well. So let's talk about it afterwards.
You've talked about your kind of frustration with the debate requirements. Said that they were rewarding celebrity. You've called it money laundering, the best money launderer.
It's true. I mean, to get on that stage costs some candidates $70 for every dollar that they raise. I think the debates are a meaningful part of our political tradition. There's no doubt about it. But we have attached far too much significance to these debates. The American people are by and large not watching the debates. The debates are not opportunities for people to have serious conversations about policy. And the debates have done nothing to alter the landscape of this race. So, you know, I'm just going to run my race.
So what's the one thing that President Bennett would do right out of the gate?
I don't think there is one thing here. I think we need too much more than that. I think reversing the damage that Trump has done with this tax bill would be an important part of it. Getting started, you know, on the first day on climate change, I think is critically important. And running a series of reforms to take our money out of our politics and put people back into our politics. This is not about one election. This is about elections for the rest of our lives. Maybe not your life, but my life, for the rest of our lives. And we have to build a reform movement that will be sustained over a generation to get us out of the mess that we're in and into a place where when the economy is growing, everybody benefits from it, and where we've got politicians in Washington that are doing more than fighting each other about whether to turn the lights off here, and instead are figuring out how to invest in the next generation of Americans.